Hello everyone, this is Sam Spade with another tutorial in the Git and GitHub for GameMaker series. In this one, we'll be talking about the fundamentals of GitHub. I believe I said it before, but GitHub is not Git. So then what is GitHub? Essentially, it's a web service that's used for hosting software for development and version control that uses Git. It allows you to view, manage, and edit your code online. It can serve as a remote host and a link between different computers, and it provides you with free public and private repositories. But it's also so much more than that. It has simple project management. I've used it multiple times on different projects. It allows you to create a wiki for your code. It's a massive resource of code in general, and it lets you do other things as well, such as host your websites. So like we went over in the Git fundamentals tutorial, Git is distributed version control. This means that you have multiple repositories. You can have one on a computer, one up in the cloud somewhere, and each repository is equal to any other repository. GitHub is essentially an interface with the repository that they're storing for you. So you can have, say, your computer down here that has its repository that you can interact with through GameMaker and Git. You can have another computer over here with its repository that you can interact with through GameMaker and Git, and you can be pushing those repositories up to GitHub where you can interact with it through GitHub. And in order to do this, you need to connect your repositories. There are a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to go over what I think is one of the simplest. The first thing you need to do is make both repositories, one on your local machine and one in GitHub. We've already talked about how to initialize a repository on your local machine, and I'll demonstrate one way to do that on GitHub in just a moment. Then on your computer, for me it'll be in Git Bash, you use git remote at origin and your URL, and git push -u origin master. To break these commands down a little bit, again, we prefix the git commands with git. This is pretty self-explanatory, remote at origin and the origin's URL. And then git push, this is the command that you will use to push to your repository. And this is setting the name of the remote repository and the branch. Origin and master are the default names given by Git, but you can change them. Once you've created a GitHub repository, you use git push to update your remote repository. Whenever you use git push to update your remote repository, with GitHub at least, you'll have to authenticate what you're doing. Git will ask you to do this every single time if you don't set up some type of long-term solution. But there are a number of different ways of doing this, and there are already great tutorials out there. I'll link to a couple down below. And again, the default method of authenticating yourself every time you push, that's just there. So you don't need to set up one of the automatic authentication methods, but it will probably be nice once you start using Git. So let's jump over to Git and our project and GitHub. So here we are in the GameMaker Studio 2 project. We can type in git status to see our current status. It looks like there are a couple changes. I'm actually not sure what these are. I think they are a result of the fact that I am now no longer using the beta version, but I'm using the actual GameMaker Studio 2.3 official release. Let's just do a quick git add, git commit. There we go. Git status. You can list your remote branches with git branch remote, and I don't have any. And we can do git log pretty one line and just see a quick list of our past commits. So let's jump over to GitHub. Here we are at my GitHub profile. I'm already signed in. To make a new repository, all you need to do is go to the repository section and click new. Now this will give you a couple options, but the first thing you want to do is name it. You don't need to name the repository the same as your project. However, you will probably want to. I'll use the title YouTube tutorial Git and GitHub for GameMaker. You can supply a description if you want to. I'll do a short one. The public repository for the YouTube tutorial series on Git and GitHub for GameMaker. Next, you select public or private. This will be public, so other people will be able to see it. And you want to skip this step if you're importing an existing repository. You don't need to skip this step. You can still do it, but it will be much easier if you just skip this step. So don't initialize the repository with a README or do any of this. Just leave it all blank and click Create Repository. As long as you skip that step, you should get this screen. And what you want is right down here to push an existing repository from the command line. So as I said in the slides, we want the command git remote at origin and then the URL. And all you need to do is copy it over so you don't need to write it all out. Pull up git bash, put it in, and hit enter. One important note if you're using Git Bash on Windows is that Shift Insert is the command to paste by default. You can change it if you want to, but that tripped me up for a while because I was trying Control C and I couldn't get it to paste in. But Shift Insert is what you do if you want to paste something in to Git Bash. Now let's check if we have a branch. Nothing shows up, so let's do git push u origin master, and this popped up for me. I'm going to fill it out briefly off screen. All right, I filled it in. I actually typed my password wrong once, but I got it right on the second try, and everything has been updated as expected. So now if we type git branch r, we have origin master. So we finally done it. And if we do git log pretty one line, we can now see that we have not only our master right here, but we also have our origin master. So if I scroll up here, we can see that this was not there before. This is our remote branch. And if we switch back over to GitHub, I can refresh, and here we go. Everything is up. We can go under an object. I'm not sure if any of these objects even have code. Object 3 has some code, so let's look at it. Step 0, that's the main step event. If keyboard check press VK space, show debug message, you press the spacebar. Our project is now available online. So let's make a couple changes. We're going to come over to GameMaker and we're going to delete 3 of our objects. Let's rename a couple things. And let's put the object in the room. Now we can repeat our basic process of git add, git commit, updated project. Let's do a quick git status. Now you can see that we're on branch master, but our main branch is ahead of origin master, our remote repository, by 1 commit. It even gives us the command to use to push our changes to the remote branch. But let's also look at it with git log. Git log pretty one line. You can see that our master is here on updated project, but our remote repository is still back here. Let's fix that with git push. There we go. Now git status reveals that we are completely up to date, which we can also confirm with git log pretty one line. Everything is up to date. And if we come over here to GitHub, refresh, and everything has been updated here as well. You can also go and look at the commit history by clicking on commits. You can see the various history of the project. You can go check them out, see what happened. One thing I think that's worth noting is GameMaker, of course, is doing a lot of stuff under the hood, and some of that stuff is being saved out as code here, which you can actually see and inspect inside of GitHub. That's what these .yy files are. And this can be an interesting thing to look at sometimes. Let's make one more change just to get into the habit of this new workflow. Let's go to object test. Let's do a create event, and we'll just say, hello and welcome to the Git and GitHub for GameMaker series. Let's close that out. Repeat our process once more. Git add, git commit, added a welcome message, git push, and git status just to check on everything. And if we come back to GitHub, we can go to object test. We now have the create event. Hello and welcome to Git and GitHub for GameMaker series. So there you go, a very basic workflow where you work, then you commit, then you push, then you work, then you commit, then you push, then you work, commit, and push. And what that creates will be a version history going from version to version that is now mirrored on GitHub, allowing you to go to GitHub and view your code online, look at your commit history and code at different points in time, and so on. To follow along, of course, you need to create a GitHub account and a GitHub repository. Again, use the no readme method. Then you can connect your GameMaker repository to your GitHub repository and practice the basic workflow. I'd also strongly recommend just looking around GitHub and seeing the basic things that are available to you within projects and within GitHub. Again, there's a lot there and it's a very useful tool to understand how to use. In summary, GitHub is for hosting software development and a window into managing your hosted repository along with so much more. You want to create both repositories and then connect the GitHub repository with the local repository. And then once you've done that, you can work, commit, and then push your local repository to GitHub. Committing is what saves your changes to your repository, and pushing is what takes those changes and puts them in another repository, in this case GitHub, essentially backing it up online. The links to these resources are down below. And that's it. Thanks for watching.